Hi, I'm Mark from Property Ventures. Welcome to this week's New Zealand Property Podcast, where we interview the property expert around New Zealand.
Hi, I'm Mark Honeybay from Property Ventures, and welcome to today's podcast. What's the most important part of property investing, you might say? Obviously, there isn't just one, but what would investing be without income? Being in control of that income is an involved process that you must ensure is done correctly. So for us, the property investor, a great property manager can be so important for your property business. Today we have Barry Adkins from Quinovic, Mount Eden, to talk about just this. We hope you enjoy the show. So Barry, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Mark. I'm looking forward to this.
Okay, right, for the people that won't know you out there, can you tell us just a bit about yourself, investment-wise, of maybe what you've done and how you've ended up owning and running a property management business in Auckland?
Yeah, certainly I've had an interesting track actually. I've always been interested in the financial sector, and first 10, 12 years of my life in work since I was with the banking industry, and I moved through into various types of business ownership, and along the way at a fairly young age, actually 21, my wife and I were married at 22, 20 respectively, and we purchased our first rental home. So that sort of started the passion of rental property investment at a very young age. So here we are 20 odd years later, and I'm still in that game. I purchased Quinovic, Mount Eden, back in 2010, and still operating that business at this stage. So I've been in the property management industry for 4 years myself, but I've been an investor for well over 20 years.
Great work. Oh, you've obviously got a heck of a lot of experience over that time in 20 years. And then you also know for the property management game, you learn pretty quickly in a few different things you didn't know before you started that. As in, I had a property management firm myself a few years ago for a couple of years that I unsold. So I can understand that. So, okay, we'll probably come back to your experience a bit over those 20 years during the chat in the next sort of half hour. To tell us a bit about Quinovic, first of all.
Yes, certainly. Well, Quinovic's a franchise business that has now 28 outlets nationwide. The business was commenced in Wellington by the still current franchisor, which is Ross Davey, and he had a wealth of experience, and he could see an opportunity in the market for property management and systemising things to manage residential rental properties. So our business is residential rental investment, or management I should say, and that's our core and only business, so we don't get involved in sales of properties. We're physically focused on residential property management. My business of Mount Eden was the first Auckland Quinovic business to commence, which was in 1989, so we've got good 20 plus years experience in the Auckland market as well. There's a total of 8 outlets in Auckland now, and as I say, 28 nationwide. Quinovic's focus is very much on working one-to-one with all of its clients and building relationships from there. Our biggest business referrer is that of satisfaction from existing clients looking to introduce others from outside that aren't using Quinovic at the present time. So our referral business makes up 90% of our growth in our business, which is quite a satisfying comment to be able to make.
Absolutely, and I've, as I said, I sort of know a wee bit about property managements and companies and how they work, and I think both a small firm can have benefits, and also I think a nationwide company like yours that have got the runs behind you, and you're not second guessing anything, you've got it all behind you, is another big advantage for people to use a company like yourself. So what we've got you on today, Barry. We're a property investment investors listening to this. Property investing isn't anything without income, obviously, and income obviously comes for property from the tenant. So what we want to do is talk to you and see how you can help anyone listening, the benefits of using a property manager, and how they can do things better. So yeah, it's the crucial part of the whole game. As I said, without income, we haven't got anything. So we'll start off with what's one of the biggest mistakes that owners do when they manage their own properties?
Well, actually, the single biggest mistake is they don't follow the process and the rules and regulations that are available to them. The purpose of the tenancy tribunal is to offer a tool to manage in the event that if you haven't applied the rules, then, or if a tenant hasn't applied the rules that are available to an owner, then you can use the tenancy tribunal to have that case heard. So what I'm really saying is you place a tenant in a property and you collect rent. It's a common story. A landlord thinks that they know how to do everything on their own, and the best way, and everything's going fine if they're collecting the rent. Yeah, the other mistakes that landlords do make is that they aren't doing regular inspections for their properties, or they're perhaps not keeping up the maintenance that might be necessary, or for that matter, if they're not keeping up the maintenance, they may be missing out on the opportunity to maximise the rents on the property. There could be a simple change you could make in your property, i.e. maybe painting a room, that could add another $10 a week to the rental. Are they doing those things over the process? Are they when you use a property manager, one of the roles of a property manager, in my opinion, is to work with the owner to be looking at such things as, if we were to improve the property, will that generate more rent, and how quickly will you recover that return on investment for the maintenance spend that you've incurred? And all of those types of things are what a third-party property manager should be delivering to their clients.
Absolutely. I mean, that one on the maintenance is something I don't think I appreciated how important it was when I first started investing myself, and you try to sort of cut corners and not do it. And what I like now is, I'm selling some of the properties we get to investors, and they're more than happy to spend whatever I suggest at the start of as soon as they take the place over, and they end up getting more income than I've told them they'll probably get, which is great. And that, as you said, that by so many factors with the maintenance side, I guess. With one is you're providing a better place for the tenants. They're happier, they'll stay longer, you'll get better tenants, and as you said, at the end of the day, you'll get more income.
Absolutely, and you can also be losing value quickly if you're not acting on those maintenance issues quickly as well. You can say a simple example of a leaking tap, and it's getting through into the woodwork somewhere under a sink, for instance. Well, the outcome or the damage potentially being incurred can be far greater if you're not actually moving and acting on those things quickly.
Yeah, same. Yeah, exactly. And I've seen one similar recently with a gutter. It was about $500 to put new guttering around this place. It was a solid enough home, but there was holes in the guttering, and of course that, again, the moisture seeped through from the outside to the inside, and from spending $500, you've actually saved a whole lot of money down the track.
Yeah, saved thousands, that's right.
Yeah, so that's one thing, and I know some people don't like the property managers coming back and saying, suggest you do this, this, and this, but that's why a good property manager's there, and we're paying people like yourselves to do that job, so we can, and if you use the right property manager, they understand the ins and outs of not doing a job. So, that's all very important.
There can be some misconceptions by some owners that a property management company is there to try and maximise earnings from maintenance, but it's actually quite the contrary. It's actually about protecting the property and ensuring that property holds its capital value and potentially increases its rental capacity and value.
Yeah, and from your side too, it makes it easier to rent, which is obviously that's probably the more for the plus for you guys. So.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. What's some sort of any other advantage? You've already, I suppose, touched on this, but any other advantages of using a property manager by not yourself?
Well, yes. I mean, because it's a property management company that's got good quality systems and processes will make sure they're doing things on time every time. And an example of that is rent reviews or an opportunity. For instance, our company has tenancy agreements that will enable you to do a rent review within 180 working days from when a tenant first moves in. Some companies run tenancy agreements that don't allow you to do that for 12 months, but our view is that the tenancy law says that you can review rents at the end of 180 days. Well, actually you can review it at 120 because you have to issue a 60-day notice of intent to increase should there be a rent increase required. So that's an example of a good property management company should be acting on those things as soon as the opportunity is available to them to do that.
Yeah, definitely. And the rent reviews is an interesting one. I'm finding properties more and more these days, and that we're buying for, getting for our investors, and the rents haven't changed for a year or 2 years or 10 years. I just sold a block of 10 units, and the rent hasn't sort of changed in 10 years. So
they will be well under market then, no doubt. But that's a classic example of what I'm talking about. There's a tendency for some to allow the property to just tick over, and that's fine. But I think you need to also understand why you are in the investment property market. If you're in that to make good income over a sustained period, then one of those things surely should be to focus on maximising its value throughout the ownership period.
Yep. And the other point too, I really picked up more so when we started this property management business that I had, but the importance for everyone these days of the computer generation, as I called it, they seem to be busier than they've ever been, and as a owner of a property, and you just sometimes looking after, if a tenant hasn't paid the money or hasn't, someone that you've had a complaint about them maybe that you need to follow up on, it just gets too hard in a too hard basket to do sometimes. And I know now I'm a stickler. If someone's one day late with their rent, you have to give them a 12-day notice. I'm not sure what your standard is with that, or at least a phone call and follow it up. And I soon learned the quicker you do that, the quicker you, it's a bit like the maintenance things, I guess. The quicker you do that, you're proofing yourself for a big fall later on with a big rent. And that's I think one of the, for me too, the major reasons I use a property manager now. I'm too busy myself. I've had all the experience of the world of doing it, but I still rely on people like you with my own properties.
Yeah, I liken when you purchase a property, you get your key partners around you to help you in that process, such as a solicitor, an accountant, real estate agent, and I actually see property manager as one of those parts in the jigsaw, so to speak, that you should be looking to, because you're an expert in investing. Generally, a property manager should be an expert in managing the property and working with you as one of your key partners in your property transaction.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's why we're running these series, so people can get their power team or their experts around them to do that. And I totally agree with that comment. Which probably leads on to the next question I've got for you, really. What should an investor look for in a property manager if they want a property manager to be on their team? What should they go looking for?
Yeah, first and foremost, check out where the companies come from. Who are they? Do you know anything about the people that are in that property? If they've got any expertise in the property management industry, what is that expertise? A really, really important issue that you would want to ask is, how do they manage the receipt of rents, i.e. do they have a trust account for those monies to be paid into? I would be immediately asking some questions if there wasn't a trust account involved in the accepting of the rents, because in the end, the rents are your money, and that's one way of protecting them for you. So basically do your homework. We know the internet era allows you to do an awful lot of investment. I would always suggest that you go and interview that potential property management company that you are looking to possibly work with, because you get a very good understanding of who the person is. If you have the ability to go and meet with them personally, that's great. If not, why not use the likes of Skype to have an interview with the person? What you're really looking for is, can you work with them? Because the property management company, or do they allocate a dedicated property manager? If they do, you're going to work with that person. Therefore, you need to know who you're working with and whether you can gain trust, confidence, and you feel that they've got integrity, because there is a large variance in the type of property management services that can be delivered to you.
Oh, it definitely is, and another one will obviously be recommendations from someone that's used them, and that's a lot of people come to me asking, who have you used and what have you, and you can't beat that, I guess.
Oh, for sure. And I mentioned earlier on in this podcast that 90% of our new business referrals come from existing clients and it's no different when it comes to looking for a property management company, because those same people are likely to be recommending quality property management companies that they're familiar with. They either work with them themselves or know good reasons to want to work with them.
Yeah, in fact, just go back to a point you just said before about how you receive your rents in the trust account, and I know if you're for example, the company I had several years ago, it wasn't part of the Institute of, I'm not sure what it's called now, the property management. I believe, if you're with another real estate company or with what you've got, you're a part of that group. But there are some others that you can just start up a property management business from nothing, I guess, and there are obviously risks with that. It can work very well, but there are obviously risks, and you have to do your homework on those sorts of people or outfits, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the reason I sort of stress so much around the trust account is because there is limited legislation at this present time, and that may well change, but limited legislation around property managers per se. So effectively, as you quite rightly just said, is anyone can set up a property management company, and it's those same people that you're wanting to make sure that deliver the service they say they can, and they've put all the protections in place to protect you as the owner who is going to use those services. And one of those biggies is the use of a trust account, because that is the financial part of the transaction and obviously of real interest to you as an investor.
Yeah, definitely, and I know from your side of things, I'm pretty sure you get audited. I'm not sure how often, and the other side of it, they necessarily don't have to, but I do read that is looking at that may have changed very, very soon.
Yeah, interesting enough, for our company, under the structure we have and under the franchise company we have, our trust account gets audited 3 times a day, and that may sound like an absolute overkill,
Yeah.
but the first 2 of those 3 are an automated audit, and then the 3rd time in the day is actually ensuring that our trust account balances all money in, has been allocated correctly for the owners from the trust account. So it's a very clear audit process, and then we have an actual physical audit annually on the trust accounts as well.
Okay, great, that makes sense. So moving on, for the landlord that is out there doing it on their own, some sort of compliance issues that they should be aware of. What must a landlord do when they get a new tenant, and that will save them hopefully money and trouble in the future.
Yeah, make sure, number one, that your tenancy agreement is watertight. But before you get to the tenancy agreement, capture as much, or set up your own tenancy application form that's going to capture as much detail as you can, and gaining authorisation by way of signature from them to do such things as credit checks, reference checks, with whether it be employers or friends, or as many reference checks as you feel are necessary. My belief is that you should get, as an absolute minimum, previous landlord reference check, or if they're owning a property, get some proof from the property register to ensure that it is a property that's owned by the applicant. Do your credit checks. It's amazing what you can learn from credit checks about someone. Funnily enough, also, it's quite useful to get a reference from a friend or someone else that is known to this person that's not an employer or a landlord, because invariably you may have some conflicting information that comes from one to the other, and then that may ring some alarm bells. Remember, we get one chance as a property investor owner to get the tenant selection process right. So the key, in my opinion, is that you capture as much as you can to get as good an understanding of the prospect tenant as possible. So that's the first part of it. The second part of it is that when you have decided that and determined this person is right, make sure your tenancy agreement is watertight. There is some information on the Department of Building and Housing with tenancy agreements, but my belief is there is other clauses that you specifically wish to put in to protect yourself, and you just need to do a lot more homework around that. Probably this podcast is a little bit short to be able to go through that, but I'm happy if someone wanted to make contact with me, I can give them a lot more information on that outside of this. Then, if before the tenants move into your property, the other thing that I really strongly stress is that you have a complete chattels list of what's in there, and you take some supporting photography. Now, this is most important when you're doing the exit with the tenant, and or should the tenant depart under circumstances that were a little unsavoury, because you've got an audit trail, and fact is proof, and the way the tenancy tribunal works is fact is proof. If you've got all your ducks in a row, and you've got all your email trails, and you've got photography and information to support what the property looked like when it was taken on, etc., you're protecting yourself.
Absolutely, and the photos are a great way, a tool these days, and you're exactly right what you said. And if it gets to a mediation stage, the more organised you are, and I'm not undermine anyone here, but the ones I've been involved, the tenants haven't been very organised when it comes to that, and that certainly helps the case tremendously. You're
on the front foot, and I mean, with respect to the judiciary process, that we probably do tend to still have a bit of an element of tenants. I guess you'd say landlord is guilty until proven innocent, so to speak, in a way. So that's why, as a landlord management company, we're very focused on ensuring that we've got a quality audit trail, and I strongly recommend you, if you're doing it yourself, you make sure you've captured everything that you know is a communication of importance for your property.
Definitely. And the other thing you started that topic with actually was the which I love, is having systems in place. And if you are out there managing your own rental property, have the system in place or written down, or that you go through every time you have a new tenant, that you don't miss any of those steps along the way, because they are all so important. And just like you said, the way you actually ask the question about, or we get them to sign something to say you can do a credit check, or I've heard of other people saying, well, I want to get an authority, get a police check done, and straight away there that'll either scare some away or they start fronting up from what they've done, and and that can be a good, and sometimes that can still be a good point, and they might be a good tenant, but you still want to. Yeah, it's a good way to get them not opening up or walking away also.
Oh, exactly. There's probably one more thing to add for the reference checking process is the reference check when you're making a call to, say, the previous landlord. The call is not just to say, have they been a good tenant, because the answer would be invariably be yes. The call has got to be about a lot more detail. Get a lot more detail from that call, because once you've got authorisation to make the call, you're entitled to ask open-ended questions, and I really encourage you to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And one's, there are many questions obviously you can ask there. Just moving on then to the mediations and tribunals, we've sort of touched on them a little bit, but they can be extremely arduous and hard getting money back from the tenants. So what's the one thing, we may have already touched it, but what's the one thing you should do to save getting to this point?
In the strangest way, if you've got quality systems and processes and you're communicating with your tenant regularly and you're doing your consistency of inspections and you're in and around the property sufficiently to say we're here but we're not disturbing your quiet enjoyment, that helps you control any need to go to tribunal. It's just, if you are operating that property as a business, you are less likely to see concerns or an attention to have to head to mediations or tribunals. If you do have to go there, remembering we've touched on it already, make sure that you've got good documentation and audit trails, and you're already 90% on the right track to win that case anyway.
Okay, well, I sort of might just about to move on to a bit more about investing, but so any other sort of points or tips you'd just like to say about property management as a whole or as a general for we've covered most topics. Is there anything else you'd like to bring up right now? Or?
The only thing I wanted to just make sure I reiterate is that remember that a property management company or the property manager that you are looking to work with, they are actually and should be a partner in your business investment, and your business investment is a residential investment property. So treat them that way. If you were to take on a new partner as a lawyer, then you're going to know a lot about them before you take them on. If you're going to take on an accountant, you're going to know something about that accountant and have certain expectations. Set the same expectations as you would for a lawyer or accountant or any other advisor that's in your advisory team with a property manager. Do exactly the same things, because they're such an important part in your overall investment strategy going forward. If the property manager understands what your strategy is, your now strategy and your future strategy, then they're going to treat it as a true business partnership, and opportunities outside of maybe properties you've already seen may well come up, for instance, from the existing portfolio, or it may be that they've got other relationships with real estate companies or other feeders of new properties. There's all sorts of reasons why you'd want to treat a property manager as a business partner, but understand who they are at the front end, and you're going to be in great stead.
Oh, words well spoken. I mean, it's totally, they are a partner in your business, and and they're a part of your team, and you want to be able to relate okay to them, I guess, but they have to have what you want to make your properties work well. So yeah, a really good point. Just one other question there on I know all property management companies are different. Some have one property manager may look after 50 or 100 particular properties. Other businesses have a series of property managers, and they might sort of look after any property. Just if you understand what I'm saying there, how's Quinovic work, and is it the same in all the Quinovics around the country?
I guess I can't really talk for all of the Quinovics, but I suspect the bulk of them are pretty much the same, and what certainly Quinovic Mount Eden is very much on the basis of you have a allocated, dedicated property manager that works with you and your property or properties, as the case may be. And obviously I am, if it's not myself physically managing the property, then I'm literally one phone call away as the owner, and very interested in knowing what's going on with every property, and I have a very good understanding of it. But we like to allocate a dedicated property manager to your portfolio.
Okay, no, that's great and explains that well. So perfect. Okay, well, you've all said in your introduction that you've been investing for about 20 years or so. People listening to this, there will be quite a few newish investors. Is there any sort of hints or anything you'd like to share that may help someone listening?
Yes, I think I could give you one for a start off, and that is, if you're a first-time investor, spend time looking at the properties and do your market research, or at least talk to lots of people to get an understanding of what a good rental property could be. I always liken it to the comments that you hear regularly: location, location, location. If you think about it, a tenant is no different to a property owner. They want to be in the best location for the value they can afford. So when you're looking to make an investment in a property, think about such things as, is there fencing, is there garaging, is there carports, is there reasonable living spaces, what's the warmth like in the property, etc., etc., and where's it located, and can I make improvements to these things and get better rents? So let's face it, generally either a yield investor, so looking for a return on your investment in terms of rent, or you're a capital investor, which is really the growth in the property. But sometimes you like to be both, or maybe we all like to be both, but generally you will be focused on one or the other more so. And that's important. So understand your strategy as an investor. And I'd say you better to spend more time understanding your strategy before you do anything else. Then go and look at a lot of properties and see whether they fit into that strategy. And then if you're working with your various partners, including your accountant and it may well be a property manager at this stage, then certainly pick their brains for advice as well, because they're well placed to be able to share quality information with you.
Great ideas there, and of course everyone does like the cash flow and the capital gains, but having a strategy, and I've spoken this a few times, different people we've interviewed, and some investors they just don't have a strategy. They don't really know what they're after, and it's so important to do that. The other point I'll take up, you just said, which I think is so important, is, and again, when I first started out, it probably wasn't quite so important to me, but why does a tenant want to stay in this place? You're buying this property not just because it's a property and you're hoping it's going to get rent. You have to ensure that it's up to you once you buy it to ensure that it is going to get rent. So you do your research on why it is. Is there a train run by it? It might be a good thing, it might be a bad thing. You don't know. But in Auckland, there's many places with a numerous number of power wires and lines going over top. Again, will someone want to necessarily live there? And again, it's for different reasons. There might be different answers in every different location you go to. So, great points.
It might be the purchase of the century, but it's only the purchase of the century if you can have it rented consistently. That's why I say do your homework first.
One thing just before you go, I mean, you've told us sort of your Quinovic Mount Eden. Do you also want to have a wee plug for your business that people want to contact you, or how they can contact you?
Yeah, sure. I think the most important thing is that I'm an investor in my own right, so I treat every property as though I'm the owner of that property, and I like to think that my staff do exactly the same thing, because that's how I've educated them to operate. As far as contacting me, I mean, I actually love being in with a potential investor before they've physically bought a property, because I'd like to think I can add expertise as far as where they should look, what they should look for, etc., and be a partner before you actually own the property. However, I'm also happy to take on existing properties, whatever suits you best. But contact-wise, my email is barry@quinovic-mounteden.co.nz. That's mteden.co.nz. My phone number is mobile 0275 61 448. Or you can call the reception, which is 093735400, and I would love to hear from you in whatever respect. If there's anything from today's podcast that would be of interest to you, or you want to know more, have more information about something you're looking at, then absolutely happy to talk with you.
Great work, and I just like what you're saying, just to wrap up there with the, you're an investor yourself, and that's what people should be looking for when they're trying to pick a property manager to use, and if they can add value to the purchase that you're buying, or if you've even got an existing property there, that they can still add to moving ahead. That's great point. Thanks, Barry. We'd really like to thank you for your time today, and we'll talk in the future.
Absolutely enjoyable. Thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity.
We would like to thank Barry for coming on the show today, and are sure you've picked up a few tips on looking after your property or picking a great property manager. If you have any comments to make about the podcast, or if there's anyone you would like to have on the show, please contact us at info@propertyventures.co.nz. Thanks for listening, and until next time, have a fantastic week.